Today marks the beginning of Customer Service Week, and with a special focus on the banking sector, we reflect on how far customer service has come over the years in the sector thanks to digitalisation and other technologies, and how the consumer now benefits from 24/7 banking. Well, to discuss further, I'm joined by Anton de Wet. He's Chief Client Officer at Nedbank. Thank you very much for joining us, Anton. So I was reflecting on my own personal experience of how banking has radically changed over the years. But for many young people, their experience will be completely different in interacting with banks. Just give us a snippet of history in terms of what, being a customer of a bank looked like 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, interesting. Thanks very much for the opportunity to talk to you. So some of those younger customers may never even know just how dramatically banking has changed. So for those of us who do remember, issuing a check would have taken some 7 days to clear. Things like bank statements, you'd have to go into the branch and request a bank statement. And to make a deposit, you'd have to go and stand in a line and take a form and fill it out. So awful lot has changed, predominantly on the back of digitization. So the expectation now is around clients being able to use their bank in their pocket.
Indeed.
So mobile banking really bringing that alive.
So you talk about a quantum leap in customer service in the banking sector, referring to the kind of digitized service levels that we now take for granted. Just tell us about some of those services now that we take for granted and how it's been enabled.
So an awful lot of work gone into digitization generally, and I think one of the biggest challenges we've had as a bank is to not just take the existing processes that you would have had paper-based and turn those into something available digitally, but to really use that opportunity to streamline those processes. And right at the heart of our design would be to try and make it as simple and intuitive for people to be able to transact with us. So some of those services are typically the banking apps, all the kind of functionality that exists on banking apps available to you on smartphones, gives you an enormous amount of functionality. Even digital banking, if you looked at that progression from physical-based kind of checks issued into online banking or web-based, and then into the app as the most mobile and convenient form, we've seen that transition come through. So big amount of investment into the digitization of processes and services, and along with that, an opportunity to really streamline and make things as easy and intuitive for clients.
How much of an impact do you think the COVID-19 pandemic had on accelerating the use of digital transactions, with people realizing, that there wasn't really a need to go to the branch because they couldn't?
Yeah, well, heartbreaking to think back to those times, just how difficult it was to manage under lockdown. But what it did do is it did spur on our ability to be able to digitize much more quickly. So, for example, if we took as an exercise how we would like to have moved staff to be able to work from outside of the office and dial in, well, that would have been a long, carefully managed program. And all of a sudden with lockdown, well, that got completely accelerated. We had to change our systems, processes, and facilitation, security especially, to be able to allow our staff to be able to dial in and bank, do their banking remotely. And of course, from a client point of view, very many services, I think, were much more easily adopted out of necessity. And I think there's no going back. Very many people who have enjoyed the benefit of a digital proposition will now see just how much more client-friendly that is.
Yeah.
Just how much easier it is to be able to do your day-to-day banking.
Anton, one last quick one, just about, it's a conversation that's had right across the board across many industries. How do you get the balance right between, a digital efficient service while at the same time ensuring that people are able to speak to somebody over the phone or to go in branch and get service with a person?
I think we've all experienced those terribly frustrating loops when you get into some sort of AI-driven chatbot that just doesn't answer your question. So that's not the answer. Pure digital, unless it actually answers the question and helps the client with what they're trying to achieve, is not the answer. So we definitely still have room for a warm relationship response and the ability to be able to talk to a person when you need to do that. Obviously, that poses lots of challenges on us to be able to organize ourselves operationally. But from a client perspective, you want to be able to at your convenience, do what you want to do digitally. And when you're really stuck and you need help, as best we can still provide that help, that you can actually speak to somebody who can talk you through what you need to get done.
Anton, thank you so much for speaking to us. That was Anton de Wet. He's the Chief Client Officer at Nedbank.